Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by my good friend, the sexy shepherdess himself, the penultimate legend, the sexiest voice but not face in triathlon, James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
I'm all right, mate, because that can be proven now, can't it? Now that we're doing this as a video podcast as well. Unfortunately, the proof is in the pudding. That the voice might hold up, but the visage does not. So the bubble has been burst. I'm well, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, very, very well. Again, action-packed weekend of racing. Lots of stuff to talk about. Literally, the curse of the podcast struck again last week. God damn it! Where we talked for 10 minutes about where they're going to host 70.3. Where they're going to host Kona if they relocated, and then it came out literally after we finished recording before we published. It was like, okay, great, we've missed that. So guess what? We're talking about that again this week. We had Super League,
I
which
uh,
again,
I
you
had a
go.
message from Fraser Cartmel, who listens to the podcast, saying, "You should have asked me, boys. I'd have been able to tell you where it was going to be, and that would have saved you some mindless waffle." And I was like,
Listen,
but mindless waffle is what we do, Fraser."
I mean, that is literally the alternative name of this podcast. So, but again, Fraser, how about you be more forthright with the scoop?
Yeah,
Again, we got the scoop last week. We
proactivity,
had
bro.
we had the scoop about Lionel Sanders, new coach, which is now confirmed. And Fraser, we could have had two exclusives in the one episode, mate. We're a legitimate news outlet. I'm disappointed. You've let us down. No, it's okay, James Bale. Before we keep carrying on, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. James, what's something that you like about MX Endurance?
Well, as you know, I'm a busy man running around at the moment, so I've decided to full forward defensive, mate, and ping this one right back at you as the head of MX Endurance. And a question you don't get asked very much, I don't think, is what are you enjoying? What are you proud of at the moment with the MX
I
community?
love everything, James. Obviously, I mean, I'm Captain MX. I will allow this deferral only because I know you've had about 2 hours sleep after your nightmare getting back to the UK after the weekend in France. I'm actually the timing's perfect, almost like we planned this before we hit record. We have uh, one of our coaches, Jenna Sieffried, is launching a women-specific triathlon program that she's launched literally today. So it's a live program that she's writing for groups of women. It's not one-on-one coaching; it's sort of a level in between, and that's available live on our website at the moment. I'll put it in the show notes this week. So for women who are looking for female-specific programming based around their menstrual cycle and all the other demands of being a woman that maybe they don't feel catered for in typical generic programs, Jenna's created this fantastic program. I'll link the page this week. If you have questions, you can DM her on social media. But it's a really exciting new thing that we're doing to try to again increase the female participation in the sport. So it's a really good spot for people who are maybe thinking about triathlon to come get involved. And yes, I use that as an opportunity to plug something, James. And guess what? I don't even feel guilty about it.
No, soak it up, mate. You don't get that opportunity very often, do you? So
Nah,
I thought I'd send it your way.
I love it. I love it. James Bale, we have a lot to get through this week because there has been a lot happening. And as I alluded to earlier, the first thing we have to talk about is the confirmation that the Ironman World Championships will not be held in Kona next year in February. Instead, they are moving to May and they are moving to St. George in Utah. Let's just have a discussion. I've got an article here, but I think we can probably just talk about this, mate. So again, when you heard the news, I believe the date is the 7th of May in St. George. What did you think?
I mean, I think they're loving St. George in Utah at the moment, aren't they? They're,
When's
I
the head office? When's Ironman's head office moving
yeah,
from Tampa to St. George?
and I joke, but that's no bad thing. It's a beautiful place. Me and you saw that race when we first watched the first race they had there a while ago. It wasn't the first one; it was the first one that caught our eye. And watching the bike race through those red canyon
Mm.
things, and it looks like a place that really offers up a unique aesthetic as well as some mean racing. So I think it's probably a good choice. And alongside it being a good choice location wise, it's good to see them being proactive and making just an early proactive decision to do something and sticking with it. And we'll see the World Championships returning in May with the
I've had a
first
lot.
first World Championships outside Hawaii ever.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people reach out to me about this and discussed it, and a whole bunch of people wondering why and things like that. And I think we touched on this last week when we were talking. The reality is this is probably more of a business decision rather than a like it's what's in the best interest sort of thing. Because I genuinely feel like the only thing I'm like, again, I think it's fantastic. Big thumbs up to Ironman for announcing this so far out. Again, picking a great location. I kind of do wish it was out of America, but then when we take it back to that business decision, the reality is the majority of Ironman's events and qualifiers for Kona are Americans. So therefore, it's quite important for them to put a race somewhere that almost guarantees the maximum number of Ironman World Championship qualifiers are going to be able to go, so they can clear that backlog and start fresh again at that hopefully 2023 event.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from two angles, doesn't it? I mean, they're maximizing the amount of people that they think can get there. They've probably got a database of
Yep.
who's qualified, and they're like, right, mostly Americans, let's say. That'll maximize the most people that can get there. But it also their biggest client base is going to be the US, and so
Yep.
if you're going to treat your customers as well as you can, then it's going to be putting a race on that most of your client base can get to, and that would probably be a race in America. As much as it would be fun to see it at Lanzarote or something, we
Yeah.
still don't know about the travel. I mean, we are a few we're a chunk of change away from COVID starting at the moment, but we've had moments in the last 12 months where we think things are going to go back to normal, and we're expecting, by October everything will be all right, we'll be normal back then, and we're about to hit October and nothing's normal yet. You certainly can't get in and out of the US without a lot of hullabaloo.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I think it's a very good positive step in the fact that we have some confirmation. It's a place that they've clearly had success. The 70.3 World Championships were there. It was great. And I also do like, again, trying to give credit where it's due. They've picked someone that's going to be challenging. It's not a flat, fast, boring course. Like, that's going to be a tough race. We saw how tough that race was as a 70.3. Double it for an Ironman. And I think it is really going to lend itself to a different style of racing to what we normally see in Kona. I am so curious to see, firstly, about who isn't going to do this race. I've seen whispers. I've heard things, people saying, professionals saying, if it's not Kona, I don't want to do it. I don't know. I really think it's going to be very fascinating to see not only how the race itself unfolds, but who lines up, who doesn't, and where we go from here. And again, the last implications, because the next piece of news, James, that we have to follow this up with is that they have then announced that they will be returning to the Big Island in October next year. But for the first time in the history of the race, they are splitting the men's and women's races. The women are racing on the Thursday and the men are racing on the Saturday. Now, I believe it's the 16th of October. I'm just going to check this. You can speak while I do this, James. Take it away.
Yeah, for the first time in 40 plus year history of the Ironman World Championships, the pinnacle event of triathlon will take place over
He's
2
reading.
days, with the 2022 Ironman World Championships returning to Kona, Hawaii on October 6th and 8th,
There you go.
2022.
That's the
So we've
answer.
got, yeah, that's the answer. We've got a 2 day event. They've extended the women's professional field to 50 athletes to race on Thursday, the 6th of October, and 50 professional men to race on Saturday, October the 8th. Details of the age
Thoughts?
group races are not yet released yet. My thoughts on this, I'm conflicted.
Tell
If
me.
if I'm honest, I think it is logistically a very good choice. You're going to have less people on the course. You're going to have a more enjoyable race experience as a race E of this race, and it gives the whole thing a bit of breathing space and a bit of oxygen to become a more coordinated and less drafty event,
Hmm.
if you know what I mean.
Yep.
But on the flip side of it, I'm an aficionado of the sport, mate, and I do like that big day out where everybody races together in one big event. But I'm also pragmatic enough to understand that may not be able to continue forever. What are your thoughts on
Again, business decision. Like, let's be honest. This is the thing I keep saying about all of the things we're
it?
seeing them doing is that they're trying to make the better business decisions so they can maximize their revenue, which isn't always a bad thing. I like the fact that the women are going to get the spotlight. Like, they're actually, the day is going to be all about the women. We've seen it done at 70.3 watts with great success. The only, and again, I saw it was Brad Culp. I saw who tweeted this, and he said what he wants, if this is the way it is moving forward, is that they should alternate, so that
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
that the women race on the Saturday in 2023, and then the men race on the Saturday 2024, and they, because the Saturday race is probably always going to get more attention because it's the Saturday, and that's probably the only thing. Like, I maybe would have liked it to be Saturday Sunday. I don't understand there must be a reason why they need the break in the 2 days. Word is because famously, a lot of locals in Kona don't like the race being there, and a lot of people said, "How are they going to get the roads closed for 2 days?" Maybe because again, I saw reports saying about how much they've realized the positive impact that the race has on the community and the economy. maybe they've really realized that because it's been away for a little while. So they're like, no, they can have 50 days if they're like we want the money. So again, maybe a positive. I don't know. I think it's good that the women are getting a spotlight, but I do just that's with that little caveat that I hope it's not like the warm up act to the men's race.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, either alternate or make it Saturday and Sunday so that each race gets the opportunity for the viewers to watch. Because Thursday's always going to be a more difficult race always difficult day to sit and watch 8 hours of racing at any point in anyone's life. And so, yeah, I agree with you. We don't want it to become a standard that the women race on a Thursday and the men race on a Saturday. I want to see Saturday and Sunday, or I want to see an alternation so that there's an equal, because that's what triathlon is, man. Equality across the genders for in our sport, and they've got to make sure that that continues.
And that's also worth noting because we know for a long time there's been discussions and demands, I suppose, of getting 50 women to Kona. There was a big movement a few years ago that sort of it's, but they've succeeded. This is it. 50 women on the start line at Kona. That's a big plus. It's literally the exact same number of men and women. That's the good thing is that it actually takes away that like, no, like yeah, how many like squeezing in the women rather than giving them equal presence on the start line. So that's a positive. But on the topic of race changes, another piece of news. I got this actual article from Graham Shaw at Try 24/7, but it is the fact that Ironman 70.3 World Championships have confirmed they will be in Taupo in 2024. Again, I don't think we really need to go into the article that much. So I think if you guys want to read it, head to Try 24/7. Graham's done a great thing. But Taupo obviously was meant to be the 2020 70.3 World Championships. They postponed it to next year, and then that didn't work. So they've made St George next year's, and then there's obviously Finland happening the year after that. So they've moved it now to 2024. They gave athletes the opportunity to either defer to St George this year, Finland the year after, or Taupo 2024. But the good news is it's confirmed, mate.
Yeah, I mean, Taupo Ironman 70.3 Taupo World Championships has become this kind of mystical floating thing that everybody wants to get to, and they keep moving it
Yeah.
around. And to finally see it have a place that may actually happen, because it is, Christ, I hope we can travel and move around the world by the time this rolls around. Because I would love to go and race it. I've got some work to do to get there, as you well know, Mr. Ford. But I would love to go and race that race because it's a beautiful part of the world, and it would be a hell of an experience. Go down and stay with Mr. Wild, and you know, get him to come out and give us a race on course as well. Job's a good one.
By that point, Headmile could be vying for the win, to be honest, mate. You're talking 2020, 2024. So
Yeah.
we could see a Kiwi winning the thing. So again, obviously, I've already qualified for Taupo. I got the option to defer, and I'll be honest, I did have to think about it because I really, really want to do the Finland, the Lady 70.3 World Champs in 2023. So I did have a moment thought about like how about like what way of going about it. And I thought, to be honest, I always think that in
And aren't you
Australia
going to
at
be
least.
really, really old in 2024 as well? Isn't your moment's going to have passed by the time this rolls around?
Mate, I'm
Eh?
fucking Peter Pan.
Over the
I don't get
hill.
old. I don't get old, mate. But like that's the thing. For some people, committing to a race that's that far away, I wonder what like one of the problems with our sport is that there's a big drop off rate where people walk away from the sport. I wonder how many
Yeah.
people are gonna never get to race the race that they paid for because they've given up triathlon by that point. I'm pretty sure that won't be
Yeah,
me
I
because
mean these things come in waves, don't they? The enthusiasm and the commitment to something comes in a wave, and then sometimes it can just clear off and leave you floundering. So yeah, I'm just so pleased to see it on the calendar because what a place! And even if I'm not racing, I'll probably go and watch and spend some time.
I did see a funny comment on Facebook this week. It was an American guy saying, "Look, I'm sure New Zealand's beautiful, but I don't know if I really want to travel 24 hours and all this distance to race in New Zealand because I'm in America and it's so far away." And his profile photo was a picture of him racing North Carolina 70.3. So I replied back and said, "It's funny because I had no problem traveling 24 hours and thousands of kilometers to get to North Carolina." Where I qualified for Taupo. So it can be done, mate. Like it's actually not that big a deal. Yeah, great race. Taupo's fantastic. I'd encourage anybody who hasn't before, if you get the opportunity, you absolutely should go and experience it. It is an incredible location for a race. It's really, really beautiful. Speaking of racing, let's actually talk about some races, James, because a bunch of races happened over the weekend. And I wanted to start with Ironman Chattanooga. I had a lot of people get in touch with me about this race. because I think it didn't go according to the plan it didn't go the way that a lot of people maybe thought it would. But we got a great wrap up from Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada. I'm going to take you through it right now, James. Buckle up.
I am strapped in.
Great Britain's Joe Skipper didn't miss the memo that Ironman Chattanooga was supposed to be the Lionel Sanders versus Sam Long showdown. He just chose to ignore that and blast his way through a speedy bike and run to take the title for his own ahead of Sanders. Canada's Cody Beale was very much in the picture for much of the race, eventually taking fourth. In the women's, Skye Moench took the women's title, with Canada's Mel McQuaid also nailing a spot on the podium. 2 years ago, Joe Skipper was on a tear at Ironman races, setting the course record at Ironman Florida, then doing that again in early 2020 at Ironman New Zealand. He's ran back to that kind of form again, and it would appear thanks to his impressive race in Tennessee today. Ben Hoffman led out of the water in a speedy 42 minutes. It's a downriver swim. And that was Cody Beals, who was just behind him out of the water, who blasted to the front early. Seemingly keen to make it clear that Sanders and Long weren't the only contenders in the race too. Sanders, Long, and Skipper were all in the chase group behind the swim leaders, about minute 20 back. By the halfway point of the ride, Skipper had moved to the front along with Long. Skipper pulled clear of the American over the last half of the ride, hitting T2 with a lead of a minute on Long and 6.5 minutes on Lionel Sanders, with Beals just over a minute behind his countryman and Hoffman another 90 seconds back. Long would quickly drop out of the race. Long would quickly drop back and then out of the race, while Sanders put together a solid run, his runner-up position. Sorry, where was I up to? There was no touching Skipper, who ran a 2:44.06 marathon to take the win in 7:46. Sanders ran 2:45.59 to finish in 7:54.46, with Hoffman running to a 2:46.10 to get past Beals for third in 7:57.50. Beals was just short of the sub-8-hour mark. He ran a 2:49.59 to finish in 8:08, 8 minutes flat and 6 seconds. James Bale, I muted your microphone, so you're going to need to unmute it to make sure that we can hear you talking, because you were doing something in the background and I didn't want the audio to pick it up. So I'm going to keep patting until you hit the button, because I'm sure you can work it out because you're a big boy. Come on, there we go, James Bale.
I'm back. I didn't realize you'd muted me, you motherfucker. My charging cable fell out of my laptop, so I was suddenly I had to go and deal with that. Mate, Joe Skipper is the bollocks, isn't he? Hey?
Oh my god! Like this guy is. I am genuinely so excited to see what Joe Skipper does in May in St. George next year, because
same.
Christ Almighty, he is. And again, you consider he's done like 1,000 races this year, and he's gone. I think I saw something where he's gone under 7 hours, like 5 out of 7 times, or something crazy like that.
Under 8 hours. Under 8 hours, you mean?
What did I say?
He's under 7 hours, 5 out of 7 times.
I've got sub 7 on the brain, mate. Yeah, under 8 hours, obviously. Mate, he is just he has this upward trajectory, this progression that we just keep seeing, where to me, Joe Skipper has moved into that, like, he is one of those real top contenders now at any race. He's in the same discussions as a Jan, as a Patrick Langer, as a Sebastian Kienle, as a Lionel Sanders. Like, he's in that group of the athletes that you always see him on a start list and you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be exciting. And mate, his performance, he definitely demonstrated it.
Yeah, running a 2:44.06 marathon is not fucking about, is it? And he gave Lionel Sanders a solid kick in. And so great to see. And like you say, I completely concur. I think his upward trajectory, I can't say that word, has been impressive and smooth and consistent. And that will continue. And I think we may see some very, very big things from Joe in 2022.
The other thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to have my let's gush about Lionel Sanders corner for a little bit, because I know this is your favorite part of the podcast. But I really think if we look at what Lionel's done over the last few months, where it wasn't that long ago, we were like, what the fuck is he doing? How's he going to race Kona this year with all of these races that he's doing? He's now secured his spot for May and for October Kona races. And that could actually work really, really well for Lionel. Like, he's obviously been very, like, the postponement of October race has worked really well for him. But like I said, from like an actual technical preparing himself for next year point of view, Lionel's done very, very well here. And I don't know if you saw the post race footage. He said he thinks it's his best executed race. He didn't really blow up. Again, I just think it's like I said, he just seems to be making smarter choices this year. We know he's working with his coach now, like, who's got a very scientific approach. I feel like we're really starting to see an
Do you think
evolution.
he's coming? Do you think he's coming?
I don't think. Again, I'll say I've said this 100, and it's no disrespect. I think Lionel is fantastic. I'm just not sure he's at that same level as a Jan Frodeno, or
Well,
or
he's
the
Norwegian now,
Norwegians.
isn't he?
Partial. I mean, as a partial Norwegian, I'm happy to welcome him to the club. Obviously married to a Norwegian, but I mean, again, mate, I say that I'm always happy to be proven wrong. Like if he comes out in May and absolutely smashes it, which he could, he's Lionel Sanders. I'm not going to be there going, God damn it. I'll be there going, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I saw something incredible. Uh, yeah, there's a lot to be excited about that May race, mate. I'm glad we actually can talk about it like with certainty now. Like we know where it is, we know what's going to be different. We can start to do what we do best on the show and speculate about what's going to happen, mate. So. Um, should we talk about the women's race? Do
Let's
you want
talk
to
about.
run through the women's race, or do you want me to
Yeah,
do it?
yeah. No, no. Canada's Rachel McBride was first out of the water in 44:31 ahead of Moench by a couple of seconds and a minute up on McQuaid and American Katie Morales. From there, the race became the Skye Moench show as she steadily rode and ran away from the rest of the field. By the end of the 116-mile bike ride, Moench was 14:44 ahead of McQuaid, with American Kelly Philnow another 9 minutes back. On the run, Moench ran a solid 3:01 to open up more time on the rest of the field, finishing in 8:34.07 and over 26 minutes ahead of the next woman. Spain's Gutierrez Frandes Larralde also ran a
Perfect.
3:01 marathon. Yeah, thank you. She was 38 seconds slower than the champion to move herself to second in 9 hours and 38 seconds. McQuaid ran a 3:16.18 marathon to hang on for the final spot on the podium, finishing in 9:04.21. Another Canadian, Jen Arnett, would take fifth in 9:23.31, while McBride would struggle through the run and end up eighth in 10:10.50. So on the women's podium was Skye Moench in 8:34.07, Gutierrez Ferrares in 9 hours 38 seconds, and Mel McQuaid in 9:04.21.
Skye Munch, mate, that is a fucking decimation. Like that is a destruction of the field. 26 minutes. Sky raced 70.3 worlds the weekend before. She was top 10. I'm sorry, Sky. I know I can't remember off the top of my head. But to then back up with this performance and do this to the rest of the field, man, Sky just she again. We talk about that upward trajectory that we spoke about with Joe. Sky just seems to be getting better and better, and it's another athlete who I'm really excited to see go and race the Ironman distance because I think Sky is a lot better. Again, I'm not no not trying to speak negatively, but she's very good at the iron distance racing, and I'm excited to see her race on that St George course next year in May.
Yeah, she's cool, isn't she? I mean, she's getting that power behind her and putting out performances like this with a 25, 26 minute victory margin is just impressive. And she's got a really, really good attitude to the sport, and she takes it with a sense of humor, and she engages with the community around the professional racing. And so I've got a lot of time for Sky Monch, and I think that like we said with Joe, some very big things to come for this athlete.
We jokingly refer to athletes as friends of the show if they've been on the podcast before, but I genuinely consider Sky like a friend of the podcast because I think she's just, I enjoyed our chat with Sky so much, and I just like you said, she does such positive things for the sport. So it's not
Yeah,
just gushing over Lionel; it's gushing over Sky Monch corner with Tim Ford. It was story
there you
time with
go.
James Bell last week. It's yeah, whatever it was with me. I've lost my train of thought, mate. There's something else I want to talk about because one of the things we did talk about a lot at St George 70.3 World Championships a couple of weeks ago was how impressive Lucy Charles Barclay's run split was. There was a Canadian pro athlete who was not that much slower than her, and I've started to hear little whispers about a certain Canadian triathlete called it's Tamara Jewett, I believe is her name. I'm actually having a blank because it's just got her last name in this article. I'm pretty sure it's Tamara Jewett. Do you want to check that for me while I go into the article because
You
she has
start
set.
talking, Fordo.
I'm going to read through the article. I got this from Kevin McKinn at Triathlon Magazine Canada. She has set the world's best half iron distance run record. Jewett's 1:13:08
Tamara
Ironman 70.
Jewett.
I was right. Thank God. Did I say Tamara? I did.
You did.
Tamara Jewett's 1 hour 13 minute 08 second half marathon. Jesus, come on, Tim, get it together. At Ironman 70.3 Augusta is almost a minute faster than the previous best time for the distance. Germany's Annie Haug's 1:14:07 from this year's Challenge St. Polten in Austria. Haug also has the third fastest time, her 1:14:11 from Ironman 70.3 Dubai in 2018. Jewett has the fourth fastest time to ever, her 1:14:19 from Ironman Timberman earlier this year. The only other women who appear in the top 5 is Switzerland's Olympic gold and silver medalist Nicholas Spirig. There's a Canadian component to the fastest bike split on the list too. American Heather Jackson's 2:05:17 from Ironman 70.3 Calgary in 2017 is the top performance. All 5 of the fastest women's swim times on the PTO list are from Ironman 70.3 Augusta just over the weekend. Sonia Catano, 1957, Ellie Salthouse, 1959, and Grace Alexander, 2002, topping the list with their performances last week. Helly Fredrickson's 2002 is also on the list. Times on this, yeah. It was worth noting that Catano didn't actually have the fastest win in Augusta. American Rachel Olsen was first out of the water in 1935, which is a bit confusing. The fastest overall time for the half distance event is Helly Fredrickson's 3:55:50 from Challenge Bahrain in 2014. Earlier this year, Daniela Reeve went 3:56:53 at Ironman 70.3 Dubai to post the second fastest time ever, while Heather Jackson followed her record-setting bike in Calgary with the third fastest time on record of 3 hours, 57 minutes and 20 seconds. We never really talk about the women's records that much, mate. And I thought this was a pretty good opportunity to talk about it because they have done some seriously impressive results. What do you reckon?
Yeah, running a 1:13:08 for a half marathon at the end of a 70.3 race is, that's smoking, isn't it?
It's not fucking about.
That's not fucking about in the slightest, and taking just shy of a minute off Anna Haug as well. You can't sniff at that, can you? Because she's not a bad runner.
That's again the thing, though. You consider the fact that she's done that to Annie Haug, who we consider probably the best runner in the sport, and then the fact that Lucy Charles ran a minute faster than Tamara in St George. Like you're starting to play 4D chess a little bit, but you're really starting to realize again just how impressive some of these results are. And I mean, for the women, I didn't even know what the women's half Ironman record was. So 3:55:50. It's not that far off the men's. Normally, like what do we say, about half an hour? So it's inside. It's 26 minutes slower than the men's world record, which is again crazy fast. I mean, I'd love to go 3:55. That'd be the
Yeah,
dream.
yeah. Mate, you'd never stop talking about it. It would be.
Can you imagine?
You'd be unbearable.
Can you
You'd be
imagine?
unbearable. Yeah.
I'm still going to set my indoor 70.3 world record, mate. That's good. I'm working behind the scenes on it. James Bale, the other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about this week is a little race that happened in Malibu, and then it was part of a bigger series that we've mentioned a few times on the podcast, but I thought maybe we can go into a little bit more depth. Do you want to tell me about Super League Triathlon Malibu?
Super League Triathlon Malibu, mate, was raced over the eliminator format. So it was swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run with a break in between, and athletes being eliminated at each stage. We had clear favourites coming in. It was fairly obvious from anyone who's been watching Super League that Jess Learmonth was going to take the title, and Johnny Brownlee was nailed on for the men's. But there was a shake-up, was there not, Mr. Ford?
There was a lot of shake-ups, mate. I mean, how do you want to... We do this every week. We're not going to talk through the article because we both watched this race.
Yeah, indeed.
Flora Duffy was just, again, she's the Olympic champion. She's the best short course triathlete at the moment. We're not surprised to see her walk away with the win. But what was very, very surprising was to see the battles for the minor placings and then the impact that it had on the overall races. I was very surprised to see, not surprised, that's not the right, I don't know how to say it, but Jess Learmonth didn't win the series, mate. I still am like, I scratched my head a little bit going, she won 3 out of 4 races and doesn't win the series. And I don't know whether it's the fatigue of those performances because she was so dominant up to this race, or if it was the impact of somebody like Flora and then having...
less the impact of Flora, more the impact of Lucy Charles Barkley taking that first short shoot, I reckon. I think Flora's impact would have been less considerable than Lucy taking that short shoot away. I think there's a pickle in the air, isn't there? That someone can win 3 of the 4 races and come second. But mathematically it works when you look at what Georgia Taylor Brown has done with coming consistently second place for those 3 races and then taking the series in the final race by beating Jess by a couple of spots. I mean, that's how racing is. You've got to race the mathematical format that you are racing. There is no
mathematical. Come on, mate. You're English.
What I tried to
it's
say.
It's literally your first language. What are you doing?
there is no saying, well, I won 3 of the races, so I should. I mean, ultimately, the maths bore out, and Georgia Taylor Brown won the series. Flora Duffy is astounding, and she's
Yeah.
one of the best short course athletes on the planet. What she just rocking up and putting out a performance like that is fantastic. Is there a discussion to be had about the freshness of a wild card who hasn't had to change time zones to come and race a race when the rest of the athletes are racing a full series? Yeah, it probably is, because it is going to make a difference. But that that aside, she still turned up on the day and put out a performance that she can be incredibly proud of, and spanked everyone else. Um, I was pleased to see Katie Severa's up there firing as well.
Yep.
I enjoyed that because she's great. But I did feel for Jess because Jess is a warrior, and she's shown over and over again how suited she is for this style of racing. Georgia Taylor Brown is a fantastic athlete and been very, very consistent across the series. But she's made some mistakes, man. She's made some mistakes. Yes, she's made up
Yeah.
for them within the races, but there have been tactical and errors by
Errors.
Georgia Taylor Brown. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you actually look at Georgia and you take, if we were just to like pluck out Jess Lemont from the series, we'd almost be saying that Georgia's been extremely dominant too. She's just been behind Jess Lemont, who's been really dominant. Like I think she's the queen of consistency, and that's what I mean. You see it all the time. I think was it in 2019 when Vince Louis was the world champion, but he hadn't won an actual event. Like
Mm.
he was always up there or thereabouts, but never actually won a WTCS event. Like it happens when you play the points, and that's the I guess the price you pay for a point series, like we saw here. I don't dislike it. Again, it gave that race more drama than simply who's winning the race. Who it was about suddenly Flora's won. What's happening? What does this mean? What can Jess catch Katie? What happens if Jess passes Katie and comes third behind George's second? Who wins? Like that's the stuff that I really like about it. And yeah, it was great. Flora Duffy, like you said, is just man, she's so good. Like it's crazy how good
Yeah,
she is.
Georgia Taylor Brown was the only athlete that really took it to Jess Learmont consistently week in,
Yep.
week out. So I don't think we can be concerned about her taking the series. Flora Duffy was astounding. I would very much like to caveat her performance with the fact that she was fresh as a daisy and
Mm,
hadn't had to change time zones. I'd like to have seen her race the whole series, or
yeah,
I'd
same.
like to see all of them race a race fresh. But then, you know, they did at the Olympics, and Flora did it, didn't she? So I mean, you can't take away from how bloody good an
And
athlete she
Montreal,
is.
mate. Like again, that's why I think I was expecting her to do it, not because of the Olympics so much, but because of what she did in Montreal at that eliminator. Like she literally won that format at WTCS event there. I want to talk about Lucy Charles Barclay, obviously, who popped up and raced the Super League event. A few things of note. Obviously, she did get that first short shoot, but it was very interesting to see her not like those second and third swims. She wasn't as dominant as she has been in other races. Like she was actually not at the front the whole time, and there was a particular moment I saw, and I can't remember what race it was in, where she came out of the water like top one or two. But because of her lack of those technical skills through transition, she literally went from being first or second across the line out of T2. But by the time she actually finally got on her bike and took off, she'd almost moved to the back of the race. I
Yeah,
found like, again, and this is I get it because she's a long course athlete. She's not had the opportunity to sharpen that stuff up. And I guess what I'm saying is just imagine how much better she's going to be at the long course stuff when she has
short course stuff.
really got on top of those short course things. Because I mean, I think when we were watching 70.3 Worlds, I even commented to you. I was like, what's with her dismount? And we saw her have the rocky dismount where she crashed in Miami this year too. Like if anything, she's such a complete athlete. And we talked about Summer Rappaport last week and her lack of technical bike handling. I think it's probably the only weakness we see in Lucy Charles's arsenal is just that lack. But again, it's something that I'm sure she's going to fix.
Yeah, I mean, she's the unfinished product, isn't she? She's only really recently decided she's going to focus on short course. She's taken the 70.3 worlds with astounding aplomb, and is she going to race Kona? Is she going to do sub 7, sub 8? Once she's done sub 7, sub 8, is she then just going to focus entirely on short course and move and put set her sights on Paris? I think all of these issues she's got with the transition and with the tactical positioning, etc., they are things she will solve.
Definitely, 100, mate,
Um,
no doubt, definitely.
she's a short unfinished product at the short course racing, and she's very, very new to Super League racing. So this would have been totally out of her comfort zone. And when it comes to the swims and seeing her drop off a little bit, I think a lot can be said for the surf and the swell that was there. I think not many athletes train in those sort of conditions anymore. It's not We're not in the 80s, lining up on beaches, running into the sea anymore. A lot of races are in controlled conditions, and sometimes when the waves are that big, they'll be cancelled. So it's not often you see athletes having to contend with those sort of conditions.
What did you think of the race? What did you think of the venue? What did you think about the layout of the course and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Beaches are always fun. I do like a beach start. I'm a bit of a sucker for that because it reminds me of the old days. What did you think?
Again, I'm always the sort of negative one. I actually thought it looked. I found it quite a contrast to the other courses in the sense that it literally looked like they were running around a car park, like a car park next to the beach. And I think about how tight and precise that Jersey course is. I think about how good the London course looked, and even the Munich course where it had that great hill, and it still looked like a real little sort of hub. I did like, this just felt a bit. I don't know, like it was just barricades with banners on it in a car park. Like I don't know. Maybe again, I'm nitpicking now. I understand, but it's probably to me the least impressive looking course. I mean, it was very technical. There's a lot of turns and stuff like that, but I think it was, with the exception of swim, which again was great. I found it quite lackluster to be honest compared to the other ones. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just being a bit negative.
So in the women's race, Flora Duffy took the victory, Georgia Taylor Brown was second, and Katie Zaviras rounded off the podium in third, which left the standings with Georgia Taylor Brown winning the 2021 Super League Championship with 60 points. Jess Learmonth coming second with 59 points. Katie Zaviras coming third with 49 points. All the way down to the thing is too small. I can't see it. Can you see who's in 10th place, Tim Ford?
I don't have my notes
My
over, mate. You're putting me on the
my
spot.
screen
Where are
has
we
cut
at?
this off.
Rachel Clammer, 10th position with 25 points.
Thank you, mate. You saved me.
We're a
But not
team,
really
Jim James
because
Bale. Jim's Bale.
I
That's what we do
failed.
here, mate. We
Yeah.
complement each other's shortfallings, mate. So
Men's race then.
I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it, to be honest. It was fine.
It was fine. It was fine. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, the last two men's races have just about been some of the best finishes in a race slash best race I've seen in so long. Like, just wow. Honestly, mate, how good was it? Christian Blumenfeld just going, fuck this, I'm going to go to the front. I'm going to attack the first race, even though it doesn't really matter. I love him. Like, it's so Christian and it was great to see. And, mate, just that fucking finish. Wow.
Yeah. Right. The distance that Christian Blumenfeld put between him and the field in that first race was
So
just so. It was like, what are you doing, bro? But I love him. He's like a little barrel, the barrel that can. He just keeps on going, doesn't he? Um,
Oh, it's so good. I want, like, everyone's like, is it just that he just has to win? I'm like, or did he just not know? Like, I don't, I'm so, it was so absurd to see him just go, kaboom, see you all, like, toodaloo motherfucker, and just go off the front.
I
Uh,
think he's just likes to push himself. He likes to feel the pain. He likes a bit of a training day. I mean, he was
mm.
probably well aware that he was unlikely to win this Super League race, and so why not go and give himself a bit of a push at the start? I think the eliminator format, they need to work a little bit on bringing the jeopardy to the first two rounds at the front, because you've got people being eliminated at the back, but you want to see those athletes at the front racing for something. It was nice seeing Matt Hauser do what he did to take the swim jersey and achieve that. And then again, I mean, we watched Jersey and we both said that was one of the best triathlons we've ever seen. And then they come here and it's an all-out sprint for the end, and ultimately an all-out sprint for the championship. And that's what we want to see, isn't it? Isn't that what we want to see? We want to see the people that can win it racing for the line on the edge of what they can actually do in that moment. And watching Alex Yee just pit Martin Van Riel at the end there and take the championship, and then all of them just collapse across the line into heaps was pretty cool. I like that.
I saw somebody talking about Alex Yee this week online, and it was saying, you think 5 weeks before the Olympics, he didn't even know if he was going to get a start, and we now look to what, October. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He's the Super League champion. Like, he's had a pretty good year, Alex Yee. Like, he's done very, very well, and it's amazing. It's amazing to me how similar this race unfolded to the Jersey finish. I also wanted to talk about the short shoot a little bit again because one of the things you said was to see Matty Hauser get that short shoot, to do what he did. Martin Van Riel too. You actually saw how much those athletes want that short shoot, where you saw him have the sprint line finish thing
Yeah, yeah.
to try to lock up that second short shoot. Shows that, like, again, these things are different, and it creates more drama, or we always use the word jeopardy now, throughout the race, and I really like to see it. But mate, that finish was absolutely incredible, and it was the same thing. It's like it's Hayden, it's Hayden, it's Hayden, or is it Yee? I think it's Yee. Yee's coming, Yee's got it, and then who knows? Who knows? You just see them absolutely barrel in, smashing photographers out of the way. Hayden was a mess after the race, and I was loving it. What a finish to a race.
Yeah,
So good.
Mr. Wild played his card, didn't he? Because I mean, he is unlikely to beat Alex Yee in a sprint finish, straight down the finishing chute. So he went early to try and burn the rest off, much like he did in Jersey. He didn't quite manage it and finished in fourth place, but ultimately a fantastic series from Hayden. It was nice to see, um, as opposed to the women's series. It's nice to see that the winner of the men's series won 2 races, which is, the most races that anybody won. It's a very simple little formula in my mind, but it makes me feel comfortable about it. I'm just like, yeah, well, he won more races than anyone else. Ideal. And so I liked that. It works to keep me happy and keep me, understanding how it all took place.
Your simple brain is able to process it. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying,
my
isn't
simple
it?
brain's able to process it because Alex Yee won more races than everyone else. Alex Yee is champion, and it adds a huge narrative to next year because this year we came off the back of the Olympics. Someone like Vince Louis had been injured going into the Olympics. He didn't have the Olympics he wanted. He's probably still coming back from that injury and bringing himself back up to form. So next year the question marks are going to be: can Vince Louis come back to Super League and regain his crown? Can Alex Yee continue to be the champion, or is Hayden Wild going to step up and take that off him? So we've got drama and we've got intrigue running into next year, and conversations to be had as we watch the rest of the triathlon season to play out before Super League kicks off, which again will be September next year. So there's a lot to talk about, mate.
Vincent Louis, I'm really, again, we talk about like what's going to happen. We know Vince is going to Bahrain for the 70.3. We saw footage of him this week in the wind tunnel with Specialized in America. I kind of want to see him go all in on middle distance racing, mate. I really want to see it, if I'm honest. I hope we see him at 70.3 Worlds next year. I hope we see him do a lot of 70.3 racing because I really want to see what Vince Louis can do at that distance. We've only seen him have that sort of one attempt where he got the drafting penalty in Daytona, but yeah, mate, I'll be honest. I really, really, really want to see what Vince Louis can do at 70.3. Big time.
Yeah, so would I. He races like a motorbike. So on the men's side, Alex Yee took the tape with Martin Van Riel in second place and Vasco Vilasa in third. Vasco Vilasa has been a real positive for this season in this style of racing. Leaving the season standings, Alex Yee took the 2021 Super League Championship with 59 points. Hayden Wild came second with 54 points. Johnny Brownlee came third with 50 points, all the way down to Taylor Reid in 10th with 17 points.
Teams, mate. We
So
should touch on
yeah,
the teams.
we should. The final teams' standings were: in first place, the SLT Eagles with 362 points. In second place, the SLT Scorpions with 277 points. In third place, the SLT Sharks with 258 points. In fourth, the SLT Cheetahs with 232 points. And in fifth place, the Rhinos trailing behind with 199 points.
I did love in the team presentation. You've got the Eagles all celebrating their win, and there's Gustav, and you can tell Gustav's a bit like,
I
do
don't
I
get any
really belong?
money.
Do I really belong here? Like, I didn't really do that much for this, but
None of the
I don't.
wild cards are allowed any of the cut of the team's prize money. So he
Oh,
was
thank
probably
you for
just like,
clarifying.
fuck this.
Do I have to be in this photo?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, do you want to talk about the teams? What do you think? Like, this is the first season we've seen the teams. Do you think it's a positive? Do you think it's a negative? Do you think it didn't really add anything? Like, what are your thoughts about it?
I think it was a positive. It was, again, it's another one of those things where Super League does something and my brain goes, "Well," but actually it was really good. I liked the camaraderie it brought to an event and a series that already has a sort of traveling family atmosphere, it brought a bit more of that to it, because you suddenly had allegiances within the race and allegiances outside the race. Watching Matty Hauser in Jersey give Vince Louis the short shoot, for example, little moments like that, and I enjoyed that dynamic that it brought to the racing. What did you think of it?
Well, I also really liked it. I think it's going to get better as it goes. Like we're going to get more familiar with it. There's going to be more, I guess, around it. But the thing I kind of want to talk to you a bit about is we've seen two races now this year that have had the team element, the Collins Cup, and now we've got Super League. And you talk about the camaraderie. I think that's what we heard a lot about people saying at the Collins Cup. There was this camaraderie that they weren't used to at a race, and we saw it at the Super League race. And one of them was based on a draft, and the other one was based on nationality. Which one do you prefer? Which approach do you think is? And I'm not saying it's one has to win, but I'm curious to see which approach you think is better, because I certainly have thoughts.
I prefer the draft.
Yeah, me too.
I think it creates a more even spread of competition across the series. So I mean, the Collins Cup, I can understand they're playing a long game there,
Hmm.
and they want to create a groundswell of support for each of these teams.
Teams,
Yeah,
teams is
that's
the
the word
word.
I was
James.
looking for. But with Super League being what it is and being a short full race series once a year, I think maximizing the most competitive spread of athletes you can get through a draft format is going to get them more bang for their buck.
I suppose the reason I prefer the draft thing is just because you do start like my only real like regret, I think is maybe the wrong term is, but I keep talking about how I want to see Gustav race Jan Frodeno, and the only race we've really seen the two of them do together was the Collins Cup. And while we can compare the times, it's not the same as them actually racing each other, and that's because they were both on the European team. Whereas based on the rankings, which we're going to talk about soon, you would probably put 1, 2, 3 against each other. We would have seen Gustav race Jan Frodeno, and that's the race. Like honestly, that's the race I want to see more than anything in the world at the moment. I want to see those two, Chuck and Christian, if you like. I wouldn't be unhappy about that, but I want to see Gustav Eden race Jan Frodeno more
Flat
than
out,
anything.
all out,
Yeah,
both peaking at the same time.
yeah.
Let's see what happens. Yeah, so do I. I'd like to see that. I think Gustav would win over the 70.3 distance. And that's why we won't see it, mate.
I don't think it's that clear cut. Only because Jan did go faster than him at the Collins Cup. Like it's Jan fucking Frodeno, mate. We can. I
Yeah.
can't ever say. Like I said, I do the same thing with Daniela Reef. I've been proved wrong plenty of times recently, but yeah, it's very easy to count Jan out. But he's Jan Frodeno, mate. He's Jan fucking Frodeno. He could do it. I that's why I want to see it, mate, because I don't know. It's the any other race, I'd be like, it's Jan, it's Jan, it's Jan, it's Jan, it's Jan, it's Jan. Gustav, I'm like, maybe, maybe. I don't know, actually. I mean, Joe Skipper at the Ironman distance, I think is another one that I'd actually really like to see. But man, Gustav Eden versus Jan Frodeno. Yeah, come on. We need to make that
Come on,
happen.
world, make it
Come on,
happen.
world. Social
Put it
media,
out
let's
there.
do it. Maybe Gustav should go to this off-road adventure race that Jan's doing in Girona in a couple. Did you see they announced that this week?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should
Yeah,
get Gustav to go do that. That'd be cool. He just rocks up. He's like, "I'm come for you, Jan. Let's do
yeah.
this thing."
And we got ourselves a game.
Well, what are we moving on to now, James Bell? Take it away.
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Mate, you did this. You did this. So what are we
I
talking
did
about?
this. I did this. It's my fault. It's my fault. At the end of last week, we went through the ranking system a little bit because it was apparent that the changes were coming. And James Bell, did they come? And boy, oh boy, were there some surprises. I say surprises, not really. Shocks is maybe a better term, but uh, defending Ironman World Champions Daniela Reef and Jan Frodeno have both been knocked off the top spot and been replaced by the current 70.3 World Champions Gustav Eden and Lucy Charles Barclay. Charles Barclay had the highest single rate points total this year, scoring 123.98 PTO World Ranking points in St. George, where she had the fastest swim, bike, and run by a good margin. Charles Barclay and Eden were both building on good points already in the bank from strong races at the Collins Cup, enabling them to move into the PTO number one spots. For the men, rounding out the top five are Germany's Jan Frodeno as number 2, Sam Long as number 3, Patrick Langer world number 4, and Daniel Beckergaard has moved to world number 5. On the women's side, Daniela Reef is number 2. Laura Philipp moves up 31 places to PTO world number 3 by delivering 2 tremendous performances in Finland and Austria. Newcomer to the non-drafting scene, American Taylor Knibb, enters the rankings at PTO world number 4, combining an MVP performance at the Collins Cup with a strong races in St. George and Boulder. And Germany's Annie Haug is in the PTO world rankings as number 5. There's some movement, James Bell. There's some movements. Jan Frodeno and Daniel
That
Reef are not the number 1 ranked athletes in the world.
there has been some movement. A lot of what you just said I didn't hear, so I'm assuming you can hear me, and you've been talking about the changes of the rankings at the PTO. So, Gustav Eden, mate, he's number 1 now. He's the 70.3 world champion, so he's the proven best at the half distance, and yes, that means he is a long course athlete as well as a short course athlete. But it is weird, isn't it, that they've got the Professional Triathletes Organization's long course rankings for the best long course athletes in the world, and we've got what is essentially still predominantly a short course athlete on the men's side as the world number 1. Lucy Charles Barkley moving into number 1 position, obviously well deserved. She's got a pedigree of success. She's laid down result after result, and then she comes out to the 70.3 World Championships. When the result puts out the result that she did at the pace that she did, then yeah, I don't see anywhere that she deserves to be other than world number 1 at the moment. Specifically, especially when you look at the trajectory that Daniela Reef is currently on.
Can you hear me now? Am I back?
I can hear you now. Can't see you, but I can hear you.
Unlucky for you, mate. Unlucky for you. What John Levinson at Try 24/7 has done a really good analysis of how what these changes in rankings mean and the implications of them, all that sort of stuff. And I want to run through them because there's some really, really interesting things here. So based on the point system, which we discussed last week, how the rankings work, we all know it's a estimated best time and you earn points for if you go faster. The top 5 most highest number of points for a race go like this. Daniela Reef in first place from the 2018 70.3 World Championships with 125.13 points. In third place, Daniela Reef in 2018 Ironman 70.3 Switzerland, 123.88 points. Fourth place, Daniela Reef, 2018 Ironman Gdynia, 122.25 points. In fifth place, Daniela Reef, 2017 Ironman 70.3 World Championships, 118.39 points. Now, you may have noticed that I jumped over second place there, and that's because that's where Lucy Charles's performance at St. George slips in, 123.98 points. That to me shows just how incredible that St. George performance was from Lucy Charles Barclay. The other one's obviously Taylor Knibb. She got her points, as I said, in Boulder, and that made her eligible because you need 3 races to be eligible. So her 3 races have been good enough to put her from literally like 80 something to 4th in the world.
Yeah.
Annie Haug, who lost 2 places in the rankings, moving from 3rd to 5th. In truth, Annie's ranking has been somewhat impacted by a relatively modest performance in Samarin at the Collins Cup. A strong performance in another event before the end of 2021 would likely see her back contending for a top 3 position. And leapfrogging Annie Haug is another German athlete, Laura Philipp, who after big wins in Ironman Finland and Ironman Austria, makes a huge move after a long period of no racing. She's class and getting better all the time. It's also worth noticing that Kat Matthews also moved up 1 place to 8th position as well. That's the women, James.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're seeing quite a lot of movement, and this is where we're going to start to see the PTO rankings come into their own. Is when things start moving around. And PTO rankings have been fairly new, and they've been fairly static. So we kind of they appeared, they're there. We see these athletes in a line, but in order to be a useful thing and to be an interesting measure of success, then you need time for a ranking system to start bedding out and starting seeing who's moving where and what results affect what, and then the implications of that. And we're starting to see it, and we're starting to see the PTO rankings become more of a talking point than they were, and that's a good thing.
And the other thing as well, these aren't just hypothetical rankings that are great for people on podcasts to talk about like ourselves. The PTO annual bonuses, which they decide on the 31st of December, so the end of this year, it's a prize pool of $2 million, mate. And I think so there's real Like, there's a lot on the line for these athletes to get their ranking as high as possible because that's probably for a lot of these athletes going to be their biggest payday of the year.
Mm.
And like I said, it makes things exciting. Like we've ummed and ahed. We've heard yes, he is. No, he's not. Is Jan Frodeno going to race this California Ironman? Maybe the incentive of getting his number one ranking back. I mean, they're competitive people. They're going to be influenced by this sort of stuff. He's going to start to see athletes change the way they plan the year because there is cash on the line. Like again, it just adds another thing for people to talk about. Uh, any thoughts?
I agree. I agree. And when you've got not only a ranking but also financial stimulus in order to push people into racing, then yeah, that's a good thing because Jan Frodeno, we joke that he's ducking Gustav, and he may well be. He may well not want his at that point in his career. He may well not want to race Gustav Eden on the 70.3 distance because he doesn't want to impact his legacy. But if you start putting the ingredients in place where Jan Frodeno isn't just sitting comfortably at the top of a world rankings without really having to, you know, push himself into his outside of his comfort zone anymore because he's Jan Frodeno. If he starts slipping down, then is he going to think, well, actually that in itself is my legacy being damaged. So why not go after those ranking points and go after that number one position again? Because you're only the best until you're not.
And when you think about the conversations we've had a lot about who's the greatest of all time, and I think we've both been quite vocal that we think it's Jan Frodeno. If suddenly he slips out of the top 10, let's say, I don't think he will, but again, let's just use a hypothetical. This could actually start to become a factor that plays into that conversation. Like that's what I like about these rankings, and that's why I'm actually really excited to see and follow these rankings for the rest of the year. Because again, we don't have a Kona race coming up in a couple of weeks. We've done with our championship events. Really, there's no PTO championship this year, so we're basically done for the big marquee events. This is the thing I think I'm excited to follow for the rest of the year because this is the big prize at the end of the gold pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Talking about the men's rankings, because we went through what happened to the women's. Gustavine obviously has gone to the top after Challenge Daytona, Collins Cup, and St George being his three performances. Third place is now a case of yo, as the USA Sam Long continues to prove that he is the real deal on the course, and he certainly is the real deal. His two performances this year in St George, plus his dominant hometown victory in Boulder, are the source of his three ranking results. And it shouldn't be a surprise that two-time Ironman World Champion rising high in the ranks after two pretty quiet years. Patrick Lang has proven he's back towards his very best with dominant wins this year at Ironman Tulsa and at Challenge Roth. And Denmark's Daniel Bækgaard completes the top five, which means that Lionel Sanders drops 4 places to number 6. And I saw Lionel Sanders on his video talking about this, and he says, "What do you expect? You know, when you don't show up to 70.3 worlds, you have to expect that there's going to be consequences." But yeah, again, it's going to be interesting to see because I don't know how much racing we're going to see from Lionel for the rest of the year. So maybe that's where he's going to end the season. We know that there are still some races coming up. Whether yeah, I don't know, and that's what I mean. I like that I don't know.
Lionel Sanders has announced that he's calling time on his season for the year,
Hmm.
so he won't be racing again this year. I feel that he'll put all his eggs in St George now for next May because he's got his slots. So bring on St George, bring on May. We've got a really interesting dynamic of athletes who are vying for that top space and vying for that victory. So it's going to be a hell of a race, I think.
And I think, and we talk about the PTO. We obviously have a segment we do every week about the PTO. But if you're listening to this, guys, I'd really encourage you go to their stats page, look at their rankings page, and actually do some of the numbers. Like there's so much information now on their website that you can actually start to compare these athletes. Like those stats we were talking about, the fastest times and everything. That's from the PTO's website. Like there's
Yeah,
such
yeah.
good. So
They,
this is a
I
great, yeah.
before that website existed, I used to do research for the podcast every week, and it was always a ball ache. You know, having to trawl across the internet looking for results. The PTO's website has made it simple. There's so many buttons to push, and all the results are there laid out with times and finishing positions. So yeah, bang on. It's fantastic. It really is.
And I really mean it. I think this is the thing as fans of triathlon we're going to be able to focus on for the rest of this year because it's the only show in town, so to speak. Because we don't have like, we're going to yes we have some races, but as I said, this is the big thing that's left to see how it goes. So I'm excited about it, James. But you know what? If you're excited about big things that are still coming up, you should get excited about the bonus monthly episodes that we record every month at MX Endurance. James Bale is recording this month's with Christopher McCormack any day now, James.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can go to
ASAP.
mxendurance.com/podcast where you can sign up for one of our podcast memberships for prices as little as $3.40 a month. If you sign up for one of our annual plans, literally less than a cup of coffee a month. And you get access to all the bonus episodes, all the ones we've done in the past. I think there's going to be 16 of them. Get product discounts. We just announced Magic 5. Our members get 35% off Magic 5 as well. It's one of our many partners. We have nutrition, we have shoes, we have clothes. We're about to launch a whole new range of MX endurance gear. We're also about to launch our race team applications for 2022 as well. So that'll be coming any day now as well. So get excited if you want to. Maybe you like the podcast and you want to get involved and you want to represent the brand. That's a way of doing it. And as I touched at the start of episode 2, we've obviously got that women's only, a women's specific training program group package that Jenna's offering as well at the moment. So there's heaps of stuff happening at MX Endurance at the moment. But if you want to join our podcast membership and tell the boys on the podcast that you like that we're doing it on YouTube now, head to mxendurance.com/podcast. As I said last week, the plan is that we're going to make these episode recordings live for our members. So they'll be able to chat along, tell us we're dickheads, like we often get after we've recorded. It can now happen to us, James, while we're recording. So as I said, mxendurance.com/podcast, or James, if you want to find out about all the other stuff that I just spoke about, what do you need to do?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at T414 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app, which makes it super easy. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow the podcast. If you've got any suggestions, guests, or comments, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
James Bale, I reckon we need to get some more guests on the show. What do you reckon? We've had a few weeks without. I'm keen to get some more people on. Who do you reckon? Any ideas? Who should we approach? Who do you think we could get on?
God,
I
everybody
reckon.
send Lionel a message, get Lionel on here.
Yeah, we need to get. We weaponized our community to get to comment on Myers' posts. Lionel Sanders, I want him on. We had the scoop about his coach. I joined his Discord today because again, I am actually a Lionel Sanders fan. We're gonna get him, but I
I
think
think
we could.
We should get Mikel Eden on here, shouldn't we, for a chat? He can give us
Yeah, I
some
think we should do
inside
that.
gossip. Yeah,
Absolutely. We should get all the Norwegians on. I love having those boys on together. What
yeah,
about Hayden Wild? I'd like to get our Olympic bronze medalist Hayden Wild. Alex Yee is another guy I'd like to get on.
yeah.
Daniela Reef anytime. Oh mate, the possibilities are endless. Possibilities are endless. James Bale, a pleasure as always.
Always
Until
a
next week.
pleasure. Take
Talk to you
care.
later.